So good morning. Aji amara ei opportunity ta milichi OSNE ko. So we are very glad that we got this opportunity from Dr. Vijay Misra to talk about the cultural history of Odisha. So eita amar bahut din aguru plan thila kintu mane because of the time constraint jinsa ta mane hei par natla, but this is a good opportunity aji उत्कल दिवस माने एप्रिल मासरे एटा हमरा ओडिशा विषय रे हमें आज डिस्कशन करिवा. So this is a fantastic and good opportunity, and we are really glad that OSNE is organizing this opportunity. So हमें एबे बर्तन start करिया. So before I start, I'll just introduce Dr. Vijay Misra bhai na. So Dr. Vijay Misra is a physicist associated with MIT and Harvard. He currently serves as the president of India Discovery Center. It's an educational initiative on India. And avid Odia, he loves and practices the Odia language and culture. He serves as the secretary treasurer of Odisha Society of America 1999 to 2001. And also he helped establish this community, our community, Odisha Society of New England, OSNE, in 1983. And he served as the president of the OSNE 1995 to 1987. And he has been residing in this Boston area since 74. So no further ado, I will hand over to Dr. Vijay Misra Bhaina. So we'll start our discussion today. Thank you, Bhaina.
नमस्कार समस्त को प्रथमे टिके ओडिया रे कहिबी जे म काहे की कहूची किंतु जहा कहिबी इंग्रजी रे कहिबी ता कारण म भाबुची जे ए जो कथा कहिबी एटा केमिति प्रघट हो ए कथा कहिबा पे बहु आगरु आग्रह थिला से एवं सेही कारण रो ही हमें ओडिशा सोसाइटी ऑफ न्यू इंग्लैंड तयारी करिथिलु जेतेबेले मोर पुओ जन्म होला 83 मसिया रे सेथरु जे एमानकर भविष्यत कोन बेली एमाने कोन चाहू चंती कोन चाहिबे व्यक्तित्व कोन तांको की शिक्षा दिया जीवो ये सब कथा नै कि मुंड को ढुकी थिला किन तापर देखाला बेल को हम किछि किछि काम कलु किन देखला बेल को जे ए जो विदेश रहिवार जो भार बड़ भार आम निजे बुझा हम अन्य जगह लोक मान समाज को सेठी रहिबा को पड़िबो निज को चलवा को पड़िबो खाद्य चिंता अच्छी ये सब कथा नहीं कि नीरव रहा को है तेणु आम गोटे सामाजिक ग्रुप हो गलु सामाजिक ग्रुप माने हाँ बंधुता खाद्यपेय किंतु ओडिशा जो गोटे सांस्कृतिकता राज्य ओडिशा ट्रू जो मौलिक राज्य से कथा प्रकाश हला नहीं मु भी जानी नथली नीरव रही तापर जेतेबेले मो बापा आसिले 1994 मसिया रे सेतेबेले को से कथा पुणी उठिला कारण सी निज जीवन टाकू इथरे दे देथिले ओडिशा बुझिबा पे तो मु सेटु कहली से देखुता तो बयस हलानी ये कारण कौन कि पदार्थ ओडिशा जी कि ये पशिगले भारत वर्ष को पशिबा गोटे कथा ओडिशा को पशिबा सेटो मु किछि परिमाण रे पढ़िबा को आरंभ कली तापर आस्ते आस्ते जना पड़िला जानिली कि भारत वर्ष विषय केते हम अज्ञ सेति पे जो भारत डिस्कवरी सेंटर दैट वी स्टार्टेड एवं तार एबे किछि वर्ष परे 1915 मसीह जने भद्रलोक मोर जीवन को आसिले जने जैन अध्यापक सी आसले भोपाल रु सी खारबल संपर्क में मते प्रश्न पचारे खारबल को आम कहू बड़ लोक बोली जाते तो खारबल किए कौन कौन कले लोक किए ये सब कथा हमको जना ना तेणु से समय मोर ओडिशा विषय आउ टिके पढ़ा को चेष्टा कली जहाँ पढ़िली जहाँ जानिली जहाँ भावुची निज तरफ मु केते ओडिया मोर कौन भाव मु कौन जाने एवं ओडिशार महात्म्य कौन ये कथा कहिबी किंतु ता संगे मध्य कहिबी जे वर्तमान आम दरिद्र एवं आम केमती बढ़िया को हबो एवं विदेश थिला फल हमर कौन कर्तव्य ही पारे इंग्रजी रे कहिबी सो वर्तमान ठू जहाँ कहिबी भविष्य को एटा होचे इंग्रजी रे फ्रेंड्स I welcome you. I am grateful for the opportunity that you allowed me to speak to you. This is a long history of my own origin, personal ancestry, what I am, what made me what I am. At the same time, what I think, what we may do. What we'll find is a very strong, fundamental, cultural, rich, powerful a society that indigenous, able by itself, became affluent, somehow got occupied, then degraded, then misery came in. So we have to reconstruct through our own life that affluence, that majesty, that splendor, that richness, that Odisha was, Odisha could be, and then see how best we can carve a path for the future. A special responsibility because we're abroad. The world sees us. The world definitely sees us not the affluent, rich, fundamental, philosophical people that Odisha was, but as people who are looking for some food, some shelter, some work. So let us see. So the title of my talk is The Cultural History of Odisha. So this was prepared last year for MIT, again initiated by a Punjabi friend of mine who wanted to understand the Paika statement and the misery of Odisha. It's an economic lecture. It was an economic lecture. So I have redesigned them for now. Our initial chapter, OSNE, was designed to be educational. So hopefully that we can teach other people about what we are, how objectively we are, and then what we can do. So I will, so this is, so what happens here as a slide I do, the land and nature. So this is the east coast of India, and the kind of I saw the structure of so this area that I put is kind of it's called Odia land. I will come to that why it is called Odia land, but somehow it stayed insulated. It stayed insulated from the rest of the country. It became its own land. So when the rest of the country goes in some direction, Odisha had gone its own direction, a very agricultural, cultural, philosophical direction, totally unhindered by the rest of the country. Why and how we'll come to see. So now I have put here about 6 degrees of longitude, which is the north. The longitude is the point is the north-south expanse, you know what I mean? Which is actually the length, the height of the state, and the latitude is the width of the state. So about say 400 miles, maybe 300 miles. So, and coastline about 300 miles. And then, and this is important, it's you can see here, the continental shelf, very shallow. You can go a mile or so without drowning. So I call it a 0.01 gradient, which basically means 1 foot in 100 foot. So, you can go 600 feet for your 6 foot height. So like that, but again, it could be shallower. So, and that has a repercussion for the coastal operation, which will come to that, fisheries, and very rich, this whole area. Then Chilika is here. So the largest, they call it brackish lake. So it is not, sweet and salt together. The rivers drain to it. I'll come to that. And 3 principal rivers, Mahanadi, which is this one here, comes from way back here in the hills of the Madhya Pradesh, comes through, and then it bifurcates here. Then this Brahmani, which goes like that, and then the Suvarnarekha. So like that, the 3 principal rivers. I said some kind of a geography and so on. Again, people who are really interested, move through, can extract time from the life. They can go further into how economy developed, how Odisha became affluent through this geography, through these rivers. So the fertile land with downslope eastern mountains, then rich forest. Rich forest again has not been fully explored, but I'll come to that. Agricultural products. Now, agriculture might not have generated itself in Odisha. It might have come from outside, but it became a food basket for herself and provided the rest of the country and became very hospitable. Odisha became the only land where you can get some food. And so that became, Guru Nanak, he learned about that. The people here get free food. So that is how he went back and created the so-called langar system, where you can really get midday meal without question. Now, this is a little relief map, which I may use in my general discussion when we come to culture. So this is how the present political boundary is, and a lot of areas here are also they call Odia. Odia is a culture. Odia is I'll say what that culture represents, but the north here also up to even Midnapur, this area here of West Bengal, of Bihar and Jharkhand and so on, and also here in Andhra Pradesh. So as I said, that was more like a triangle rather than this particular carving, but that has been political. So we move on to show the natural sites. Natural sites are plenty, and people go and take pictures and so on. But I wanted to highlight that what is special about it, and that has not been fully understood. The uniqueness of the nature in Odisha, which probably contributed to its wealth, affluence, and richness of culture. So first I show you the bird sanctuary. People must have seen this. It's on the Chilka Lake. So migratory birds, they show up by this time, spring migration, and a massive, it's about 20-mile long and about 10-mile wide lake. So the whole lake gets covered with the birds and a splendid sight. Nowhere in the world it happens right on the migratory path. And then I saw this Daspalla. So this is the area where elephants, now these elephants are different than the African elephants. African elephants are more wild. These elephants can be tamed, and they were used in the military. And then Odisha is the only state which created how to train an elephant. So there are books about it. And the Odisha, the king was called Gajapati, who would maintain the elephant army. So the question is, they become ferocious in the war, but at the same time they're gentle to people. So that biology has not been fully understood, and also not understood how elephants came to Orissa, natural origin, or they came and somehow the African element got adapted to Orissa jungles. Now this is tiger, so it is on there's a tiger reserve on the Mahandi belt. So and these tigers are probably indigenous. They spread from on the east coast towards Bengal and so on, and it most likely came from that side, the Himalayan side, and then had habitat in Odisha. But they are very comfortable, and some of them occasionally they kill, but if they get enough in the forest, they don't kill. And then we have here finally the alligator, the crocodile. So this is a special crocodile which happens in the coast on the Mahandi Delta. And I saw some of them during my visit onto the relief in Odisha. And they're massive creatures. If you go to the Everglades back in Florida here in the south, you see such creatures. They may be pretty old in the biological evolution. And then again, whether they crawled from the ocean and then found shelter, because they're reptiles. They're not really aquatic. They can swim, but they're not live in water. They live on the land. So that has to be again studied, and we have not done much. I want to take you back to the map here. So this is the Chilka, and here this area is the elephant area. I think one of the areas here is called Gajapati even now, and then this area is here is the tiger area, and then this area, this delta area on the coast and so on, is the crocodile area. So when you visit next, you might try to. Then I come to so this is the natural sites and plenty. I gave you a small sample. Then festivals. Festivals again show the affluence of the people. Festival is not really transient. You just don't take something and then have religious tone. It's a celebratory tone. It's a tone of joy. It's a tone of splendor, the tone of architecture, tone of grandeur. So that somehow his questions is not really just do it, but do it in style, do it in pomp, do it massively. What is believed that the Rath Yatra, which happens in Puri, this probably originated as a Buddhist festival, but then these 3 different chariots, they're prepared every year, they're prepared fresh. So all these kind of these textiles are prepared fresh. And then there's a massive congregation of people in Puri, and they've made a special road for these things to travel. So this whole thing is orchestrated. so that they could engineer such thing, plan it. That becomes like the Oriya culture. That is, we do things massively and we plan it massively. We don't do anything short, small, transient, which may die. We do it for a purpose. And then because gradually you kind of believe that you are it, you belong. This is my land. I eat here. I have this grandeur here. This is my deity. This is my chariot. So I will come to that, but the literature on this is huge, and you have to somehow appreciate the massiveness of it. Then I come to this thing, it's a filigree work in Kathak, where I grew up. And this is, we call Durga. So Durga is a deity, it's a clay deity. They are made every year, and they're made like a woman. And it is not like the woman that the Bengal woman. So Odia woman is more like a home woman, and then they decorate her. So this decoration of the home woman is different than the Shakti, which comes as a killer in the Bengal tradition. So we are more peaceful, but we are more decorative. Now, all this decoration, this happens in different parts of Odisha now, but most likely started in Kathak, which had to have jewelry in it. And jewelry, how the jewelry developed, the intricate designs, so that has not been studied because we don't have any gold or silver mines around. So probably they were brought in through trade, supplying grains or supplying spices or supplying textiles. So these things were brought in, and then the artists prepared this. If you have never been to the Kathak on the Durga Puja festival, please do. And since people are technical in nature, so try to see how they create this ambience, this large, beautiful structure. Actually, when we formed OSNE in '83, few years later, we had a Odia filigree artist who showed up for a museum exhibition here, and he showed, and his exhibition or his work in the Museum of Science was the best among all people. Very humble person, but extremely, we don't see how he sees. He takes a piece of silver, just like that, a little square silver, and then he will string it through some kind of a different metal holes to make strings, fiber, and then he creates this structure. Then I saw you here, Dhanu Yatra in Baragad. This is again special. Again, we don't know the full origin of it, but this is the largest, most elaborate open-air festival in the world. The whole town, say 100 square miles, they kind of get busy into host this festival. People say that it was tacit before. They were doing this folk festival, but then became more popular after the independence. But whatever it is, again, I must say that contrasting this Rath festival, the massivenesses, and here it is the depiction, the dramatic form of it. Kind of stages, it happens in different places. So things happen, there's a continuity. So the whole town becomes mythological, and river, ponds, so structures happen. I have not physically witnessed it. I've heard about it. The point is, what kind of stuns me, it is the planning of this massive festival. So how much time you must have how much affluence you must have, how much of organization you must have in order to create this whole 100 square mile stage where events will happen at different locations, different days. It goes on for 9 days and so on. So who are those people who will witness this? And then I saw you finally, a little thing which participate in also in Cuttack, which is called this little paper boats that we kind of string through in water, and which is supposed to go to a distant land. And this is a remnant of old journey that Orias did to islands, faraway islands called Bali. We did not know this Bali Yatra. In those days, Bali meant, so I tried to physically fidget what exactly happens in those areas. Then I have not been to Bali, but I saw in Thailand. So they have a similar festival back in Thailand in the same time, which happens to be the month of November, when the weather is quiet. And so people start from here, people start from there. Apparently, there's a climatology. Who knows the sea, but we have not examined how it started, how many people might have perished, who found the navigation, then how did they find the path. So all that is open to new research. Hopefully new areas will kind of come to the plate and rediscover the adventure. Nowhere in the country this adventure is known. People came trades and so on. Here these people did not go for trade. They had social relationship and it continued for 1,000 years. So anyway, so the next I come to the people. The people, I kind of in general try to give you an impression of the various kinds of people, different people. We don't know when they might have come, but there's a distinctiveness to people. The first I mentioned about Kandha, it's not clear again whether what indigenous means for Odisha, in the sense that the late discovery that Odisha, North Odisha was very old. Very old means the first land on earth, as the land evolves from the ocean. So that could be the first land 3.2 billion years ago. But then whether the human beings evolved through it and how they evolved, or they migrated to the land, we have not examined. The Skandhas, which we call as the inhabitants of the southern part, I'll show you in the map, and these are, is believed to be part of the African migration. And they came and then they stayed, and they kind of have a enclave. I'll show you in my Odisha map how the Kandha settlements. Then we have this, but what distinguishes is they have this ear ornaments, and the nose ornaments. So this is kind of a, and then this kind of markings on the face, which they kind of create. And then we have another tribe called Munda. Now this Munda, I believe, I think there's evidence to believe that they probably arrived. They are distinct from the Kandhas, so they have this neck ornament, strong metal neck. So whether that was a protection against some kind of animals like tiger or so, or what exactly they were doing is not been discovered, known, but they operate in the northern part of the state, and somehow also they migrated further west, and it could be that they were also responsible for us taking the language, the Munda language, towards west, and that's a different kind of research. So I give you some examples of it, and I give you two more. Then we have Sabaras. Sabaras are a southern tribe, and again, the large amount of them. We believe this Jagannatha is a Sabara deity. Why they did the three different symbols is not studied, but somehow we connect the Jagannatha concept to the Sabara concept. I will come to that briefly as I move. Then we have Odra, but you cannot see that. So they don't have those metals and so on in them, and they are very strongly agricultural, and they also have some artistic thing on the walls and so on, which possibly have a significance as regarding the symbology. That is, there's a cosmology to it, that I'm not alone, and that is coming universe. So that kind of concept, sovereign literature is just being developed. Then we have Odra. Odra is another tribe, and again, we don't know the full origin of it. We think it's a northern tribe, northern in the sense probably arrived from the Assam area, but we think the Odisha philosophy of karma. People know karma. That is, what I do, I get benefit from my work. How sincere I can be, whether I'm insincere, whether I'm doing with full intent, or I have a duplicitous intent. So that is the Jaina operation, that you whether mind and heart together or not. And that goes into the Odra philosophy. And then they probably knew some technology. They built houses. And also we think they built these cave palaces, which we have remnants in the Bhubaneswar hills. I want to show you briefly about the geography of so this is the Kandha area, and it goes further down and so on. Oh, okay. So this is the whole Kandha area here. Goes further. This is the Sabar area. Extends here. Here we have the Munda area, and then Munda area is kind of also Singhbhum and this thing. So this is Jharkhand. So this is and then we have the Odra. Odra is on the. So so now I come to the theory of Kalinga. Naturally, I'm moving very fast, but I'm not moving as fast as I should. But bear with me. I think I have to cover a large amount of material in a short period of time. Kalinga. So Kalinga is a concept which developed. We called it was some kind of a land or something, but with a label. Label in the sense some area was called Kalinga by the literature, by other people, that they are from the Kalinga. And then they were known as Kalingas. But the only thing we kind of discover is that it was a Ganarajya. So some kind of a people's rule developed in Orissa through this tribal technology, where individual rights are restored or respected. Nobody is less, nobody is more. Everybody has equal rights, and that has probably to do with the food sufficiency, because there are plenty of food, hence you don't go hungry, and there is no lower value.
Rule number one in business: don't pay taxes on a place you don't earn money on.
Out, yeah.
Earphone is clear thing is on. No. Dad is supposed to join the Zoom meeting. But
Can we mute all? Yeah, please. So Ganarajya, I use the word Ganarajya here. So this is the people's rule, and that probably developed through the various belief system in Odisha. That is, the king is not a chieftain, a person is one of us. It is not a separate entity. We rotate, we become, we just kind of admit, okay. And so that's the king, so that is the chieftain, so that is the, so this whole power empowerment of people became the Kalinga culture. And then, so which means this is my land and I support it. So it came to be known as a fierce martial people, and they somehow tried to go in war with this man called Ashoka, who came from north. So this river, so they had a big war, and here there is a little sculpture which they say that the elephant of Odisha comes out of the mountains, and also they call elephant as a peaceful animal and so on, various ways interpreted. But it is like that is a resistance. So it is not like the rock has also a mountain in it, but anyway, an elephant in it. And then later on, Japanese have created this kind of Buddhist temple there. Now I want to show you these three structures here, which are about the 5th or 6th century AD. It happens in the area of north of our Cuttack, which is where we have this so-called universities. The same time when Nalanda prospered. We don't know whether these things happen by themselves, and Odisha was already Buddhist, and then it kind of tried to help the Buddhist philosophy. Now, what is Buddhist philosophy? Buddhist philosophy is, again, the Oriya philosophy, that is, the God is non-existent, or God I don't see. So some part of this logic also goes into the so-called Mahima I will come to. But that the conduct, human conduct is more important than human wealth, human knowledge. So your charitra. So that became the Buddhist creed, and most likely it came out from the agricultural community. It's not Vedic, so it's kind of a so these are the four. I always request people who kind of visit this thing, you should visit these places and you will be overwhelmed the scholarship that might have. Now all this that we did so far developed a culture of which we call culture of textiles. Now textile dyeing, you see this particular dyeing here. I mean, this is silk, this is silk. So this is silk, so this is cotton. Now, so this fabric, the important is this fabric, each of this yarn has been colored. So the weaving is not done by no foreign yarn, in the sense that the whole material, the entire material is of one bulk of yarn. So that is the homogeneity of the material. For example, this shirt I'm putting on, it has no two different threads in it. All threads come from the same species. And then those threads have been colored. And then so colored, so powerfully colored, then they go through the weaving process and the material comes out. So that technology of it, dyeing process of it, the chemicals used in the dyeing, the seasoning of it, the drying of it, the fixing of it has not been studied. So I think as part of our own operation, as we become technical, hopefully people will be interested in seeing this bold colors, which also happens in here. Similar technique happens here. It is all piece of cloth here. It's not woven. The cloth is woven, and then the patchwork art develops. And the same thing happens here, which is also a color fixing. So this is a cloth canvas. On the cloth canvas, you have natural vegetable colors. By this time, however, because we are applying on brush, you can apply some metal powders. You can apply bone powders. You can have aquatic structures, cells, so they can do this particular white. It's like a aquatic white. It's beige is also aquatic beige. So this thing happens. So this technology, how people developed, how the color will stay, how it will fix, how it not fade, how it will really have a base in which it has a psychophysics of appreciation. So that has not been studied. Hopefully some people will get into it in course of time. I'm not saying that we go, but hopefully I designed this for children who may in the future may try to explore that what we are, what we have been. So now this whole process of art manifests itself in textiles and colors and in the designs, but majestically in these temples. This again, as I have been expressing before, that the massiveness of it, the organization of it, the planning of it, the preparation of it. So a structure like that, which is Bhubaneswar, to plan this construction and to create the foundation for it, and then to start the resources allocation for making this to happen is a project of magnificent or gigantic proportions. So that people had time to plan, draw, think, scientifically develop how strong would be the foundation, how deep would be the foundation, what would be the weight of the temple, how it will stabilize itself, how the soil is, how much of gravel we put on the soil. So all those have not been studied. So I would say in the future, hopefully, myself was not even thought about this, but lately, last 2 years ago, when I was stuck in Bhubaneswar for a month due to the corona, so I kind of tried to pedestrian walk through, and these thoughts came to my mind that I can't believe that this is me, that my people could plan this massive structure, and that still stands. Now this stands again has an aesthetic value, which is not an ordinary temple because we are cylindrical. So a cylindrical stack of rocks or stone structure to stay is not really engineering possible. So that brings to this massive top-heavy operation called Sikhara. and which is particularly called the Odisha architecture. That is, we put a top to it. And that top is very important in the sense, what would be the weight of the people who might have played this stacking, this thing we played on the street. If you see that, how the top heavy, how the top by gravity holds the rest of the stack. So same thing happens here in a more technological sense. So the balancing of it, the symmetry of it, the weight of it, and the placing of it. So that is some kind of a center of gravity that goes through. But anyway, so the question is the trigonometry, geometry, the operation, the civil engineering, all that is still, they have some sketches of it, but not the rudiments of design, planning. So this is in no way, this is, we call it about 11th century. So see the amount of technology might be going into it. And then the grouting, that is this particular structures. So they were probably built, they were constructed some on the ground and lifted up to be grouted there. So to position them in right place, right angle, and to create the projection geometry. For example, there's a curve to it. The Taj Mahal does that much later. A similar kind of thing, projection. But to do this is marble, it's not soft. But to do that on the ground, to lift it in some process has not been studied and somehow were neglected. The same thing happens here in the Jagannath temple. So the chemistry of grouting in the sense how it will hold each other so that the climate, air, water, and so on will not corrode it. And so that becomes the similar chemistry as the dyeing chemistry, material chemistry, what will hold. So we know that the alkalis and so on and some sand, they might hold. But what I heard, so there are special glues in the forest, tree glues, which have this kind of a binding, which are not really water soluble. So the question is, you have to kind of, and then how the mix of it may happen, things of that nature. But anyway, so now this is, I go to the next thing, structure called Konarak, and that whole technology becomes more massive here. So you see the temple is facing east. So you go through here, there's a large, this called dancing hall. And then you see here, it is some kind of a, they call it the frontispiece of the temple. The actual temple was behind this, and it was 200 feet high. And it is in 13th century. And most likely this particular structure, which was done, but probably became too high for the architecture to sustain itself. It's also possible that ground here is soft. And that softness might have also caused some shifting. So to check the ground where you can build, I think just like people do in different countries. So you have to go to the crust and get the rock. So the coastal area also may have that kind of a crust to find the rock, but may not be. What they do is then they put gravel over it to give it, but then the earth can shift, tides can happen. So we do not know, but that thing did construct in 13th century, and apparently Chaitanya came in end of 14th, 15th, and then he saw it, he worshipped there, but then later on, it kind of did not exist anymore. So this has come out to be the most architecturally majestic temple in the world. So we have some kind of facade here, some kind of a structure here. some kind of structure here. So there are kind of where is the Sun Temple. So there are 7 horses. Why 7 is not fully known, but apparently what I just learned about 5 days ago, that 7 are given the names of the 7 chandas of the Vedas. So like the sun is kind of creating the structure. What is chanda? Chanda is the way we speak, we operate, and I will come to that when Odia language. So that is the 7, and which also, it's not 7 shwaras, but 7 structural modes in which language is operated, which happens with the Vedic. So anyway, so this is how the Konark temple is, and people go and visit it. But my point is try to see the technology of it. There are iron beams inside of it, and those iron beams are kind of I think they have put some kind of grouping somewhere. Not, I didn't see the picture here, but so the long iron beams were 20 feet or so. So that probably had to wait. Where the other temples also has iron beams, but the placing the iron beams also is a point of engineering design where you put. But good part of it is that the other 2 temples are still standing and being used. This temple did not stand. It's kind of collapsed, but rest of it is. Then I come to this Odia drums, percussion, and this is powerful. And this is what I bring in the previous, the tribes that we talked about. That is some kind of affluent thinking, which I think is very fundamental. That is what universe is. I don't know. I do not know. I just get this kind of a glimpse from literature. So people, various people, so I will come to them, principally with, there's a gentleman called Sarala Dasha, who came in late 15th century, end of about 1460 or so. And then he traces this. What traces is that what is universe a God's creation or universe real? If universe is physical, do I belong in the universe? The universe is without me or with me? So this kind of a dialogue to say that universe is not without me, universe doesn't control me, I'm a part of it. So that discovery that I am not exclusive, I'm inclusive. And so that eventually became the Tantra literature. That is, I have the right to understand the universe. I can create the universe on my own body. So I think the science of it, the understanding of it, the philosophy of it has not been explored. I'm just taking the trace of it in different means, what might be. But what fundamental comes out is that universe is a bit. Universe is a vibration. Universe is not this splendor, this massiveness that you see, but it has a rhythm to it. So that discovery, the rhythm, is the drum. So this various percussion instruments that you see created is to find different rhythms of the universe. And so that no strings, in the sense universe is not analog. It's not really continuing like that. It's just like human being, it has a rhythm. And that rhythm could be fast, slow, large, strong, could be anything, but it's animated. So that logic, that there's an animated universe, and that animated universe I belong, and gradually evolve into, which became dance, that I can map it in me through them, through these bits. So my beats. So I have enough capacity in my body, my eyes, my nose, my muscles, my thoughts, my processes, and so on, to really tally with those beats. And hence I can map. So my body becomes universe. So that the logic of it is very old, probably, again, not been studied. I'm kind of lately seeing some of these scriptures about it. So what I've given you a different, people may study this, the drums, how the different percussion instruments operate and what they do, how this rhythm science is kind of going through this percussion. This thing came late. So this is like a little alloy of zinc, aluminum, and copper. And so it kind of has another kind of rhythm. So this rhythm also is a different than rhythms, which has, this rhythm can have many variations. So the whole thing is, so that's the whole science by itself. Anyway, so these people, here are some kind of a dance. So karma dance. Karma is, that is in this universe, we operate as individuals. And that individualism is defined by our karma, or karma, what we have done. So then you can make philosophy out of it. Are you good, bad, what you did? So which basically happens in this system, that how best you have preserved the universe, the tune, the rhythm, the vibration. So that's your karma. Karma in the sense your life was given to you. Did you preserve it? Did you maintain the vibration? So they try to, so that's how the Odia become traditional, becomes, again, we do not know this, the length or the time in which this might have developed itself and become rooted. So here is some kind of a, another form of dance called Dal Khai, which is a harvest dance, but again, the same rhythm. So no string instrument in this, rhythm instrument, percussion. So that makes two things. One is the oldness of it, the richness of it, and the vibrated nature of it. We move. So these things I told you before, so these bits and so on, eventually got transformed into dance. Now this dance, earlier, as I said, that happens, this massive, because once you have the universe rhythm, so you can't have a single person really contain it. So that could be the situation where you have the folk festival or this so-called open air dance, where massive different kind of characters are doing different kind of plays, roles, and so on, and different drum beats. So now, so that means the universe is there, that vibratory, but there are all kinds of vibrations going on. And that can be only done by people who are skilled in those vibrations. But then to combine them all on the single body became the Odissi dance. That is, can I really display them together? So what I need lyricism. So lyricism is what? So now the drums become lyrical because body is one unit. So drum is vibratory, steps and so on. But here the steps are together. They call it lasya. It's beautiful. It's kind of process. It's a structure. So this kind of a thing that I kind of saw the gestures, I saw my action, I saw, so like that. I won't go into detail about it. This research is large, psychophysics, material, mapping. And then there's a book called Natya Shastra, which happened, but which probably happened afterwards. This developed before the individual acquisition of the universal beats in the human body and to depict it. And then here is our friend He visited here again through OSNE, our Odisha Society New England, one of our first festivals. And then he also visited here in Odisha Society. When he first visited, we didn't have Odisha Society, 1976. But later on in 96, we had, and so he's Guru Kalucharan, and who is massively this whole universe depiction of it in this. And then, so this becomes Jagannatha, which is the symbol of the universe. So like that, and you kind of a dialogue that am I doing it right? And hence you offer. It's not clear for the whatever you do, it may not be complete depiction of the universe. But this is how I could do, and you have the humility to offer it. Now, so this whole thing becomes philosophical. Again, I must remind you that the richness of it, the development of it, the history of it, the length of the time it might have taken, slowly, empirically, to become what it is, looks like astounding. But we do not know. I would simply say that the ground, the nature, as I said before, the universe is bit. So the universe bit manifests itself as food on the ground. Universe, it communicates to the human being by providing food. So that became the Odia culture. That is, it is the land that gives me food. So if there's any spirituality anywhere, that's in my land. So the land comes as a mother. And in other parts of the country, as I said before, there comes a Sakti, but here is not Sakti, it's a mother. Mother. So mother nourishes me. She knows my pain. She knows I'm hungry. She knows my love. So that whole this thing is not the skyward, but earthward. So this becomes very powerful, and we do not again know how long it took to develop this earth concept. But as I said before, the Tantra developed through the universe mapping on the man and the physicality of it. This food became that whether the whatever unknown is there in the earth, is it a blessing or is it physical? Is it something happens by somebody else's mercy? Or does it happen by my labor, by me working on it? And then the question is, am I sincere in working in it? So that becomes this karma theory, as I said before, but fundamental of that is my relationship with my mother. So the mother manifests itself very different ways in different places. So this is called Biraja. So this is all Ma Sarala, Ma Samalai, Ma Bhagavati, Ma Chandika. So like that. So they're all mothers. Mothers have different kind of a, by the time the mother psychology goes into the Vedic discipline, it's much later, Matruka. But Odisha, we don't know again how old it is. And then I give another kind of a philosophy here, which are this, I told you, this old Buddhist people who are, who kind of are influenced by ground, but at the same time, they think the sky could be there, or where do I hear this sound? This kind of this ground doesn't sound. So the food production is analog. So I hear this sound, so nada. So nada is different than arna. Arna is a word you use for food. Nada is a word that you hear. So these people, nada comes from the space. So they look at the space and so on. Who sounds? Because you think that the universe has a bit means something is sounding. So kind of let us worship that. So they call it void because they don't see anyone. So anyway, all those come to make this the deities Jagannath that we know of, and I might come a little more about this later. Now I give you a little bit of the languages. So language, Odia language is old. Odia language, see, the Ashoka is known to be having the first inscription, and that inscription happens to be in Odisha. Now that inscription that they can carve on the stone, so that could be technology that Odias probably had developed. But they are not really what people claim that what they write is not Odia language. And Odia language becomes through this gentleman called Kharavela, which is another 100 years later. But whatever it is, there's a Proto-Odia, which probably happened before, which is not in the scripts, but in the sounds. And that if you people really established your language very well, and something called Varna, if you understand it, there is a gentleman called Achyuta here. So he is about the 16th century, and he tries to experiment that how this Varna manifests in the human body. So that science of it, that how does the airflow to take place, is to create a particular sound unit. Now, sound units as such, that human beings have sound units, could be much older than anything else. That is the first reciprocation that I can speak, and I speak in syllables. Oriya is the only language in the world which has maintained the syllables. So people who don't use Oriya, don't speak Oriya, or do not really maintain Oriya, I can strongly encourage you to practice Oriya to see the sounds, how you vocalize it, and see your breathing pattern in the vocalization. Does it say something? So the whole question is whether the meaning of something is in a structure of words or an individual breath, which is the syllable, is the story of Odisha. That is, it is in me. As I'm speaking, my entire expression is contained in that syllable. Now that can expand and so on, but here I give you a few examples of people whose literature you might read. Sarala Dasha, I translated him briefly for some book in Oxford, but he is like, as I said, late 1450 to 1530, something like that. But he was not very this thing. I went to see his house. It's not celebrated. So people don't know how he lived and so on. Apparently he was a farmer. He doesn't say how he got education, but he kind of reads Mahabharata and he makes his own story. Mahabharata, he maps it out of that. Very kind of unique in the Oriya culture. That is, we don't care what it is, we live comfortably within our own skin, within our own land. So he became the first indigenous Mahabharata writer. Then this is Jagannatha Das. He also followed him, and he did the similar thing for the another big book called Srimad Bhagavatam, which is a late 11th century book. But he took them and he kind of did translate. This is more translation than Sarla, but he translated, but it made it the Oriya way that I said before. That is the karma, your own. It's not. It is story of Krishna, but you manifest yourself as what you do, your conduct, your principles. So that he, in old, this Munda and Karma. Then Balarama Dasha is another person of the same kind. Again, very rich. Did Ramayana. And Achyuta I told about Tantra. But he is the most mysterious among them. And if you really are scientific in nature, you must study him. Then I have this Samanta Singhar, who is a like Odia poet and powerful poet. And this becomes rich in words now. So the rhythm and the music and so on get into it, in the sense that we become more lyrical, and which eventually gets manifested in the majestic Mupendra Bhanja, who lived about, say, I think 18th century, in the sense early 18th century, late 17th century. And so on, I went to see his house, and he was kind of became poet. So they threw him out of he was a prince. So they threw him out of his house, and then he kind of took shelter in a temple, and somehow he could manage to survive. His wife somehow helped him, and they produced this massive poetry of Odisha, which has not been paralleled. We continue. So Odissi music. So music, so all this literature I mentioned to you has been also musical. And then this musical has become, I call it that the richness of the land and so on produces this, this chanda, I said. Chanda is a function of how do you lyricism, how do you express yourself. So Odisha happened to be the land where chanda, the expression mode of life, developed. The trees have a chanda, the snake has a chanda, the mountain has a chanda, the sky has a chanda, life has a chanda, the woman has a chanda, women has many chandas. So all that, the lyricism of it, the process of it, and the whole documentation of it has not happened. So very colloquial, they call it, so it is not really what they call classical. What's classical? Classical means not following some kind of a northern structural analysis, but this is very colloquial. This is as I see. So as the snake moves on the ground, right? So it has many different curves and turns and so on. And my chanda is expressing it. And then it expresses it also, changes it. So the question to quantify it, the codification of Odia chandas has not been done. So that is this mardala eventually became an instrument where this bit of the chanda in the men is kind of depicted. And then I don't mention here I don't mention Jayadeva. So this is Vishwanath Kaviraja, Sahitya Darpan is a book which kind of tried to say that why chanda, why this kind of a technique. That's because you must appreciate the beauty of the movement. It is not that the snake is moving that way. It is the grandeur of the movement, the wholesomeness of it, its color, its shape, its structure, its texture, and its movement. And that kind of the splendor of the universe. And everything has that kind of effect. So you don't see the isolation of it. You see totality of it. The totality of the mountain, the totality of forest, the totality of the sea, the totality of the river, the totality of it. So that they call Russia. Russia. That is when I'm speaking, it is not I'm speaking, you are hearing. So there is a environment to it. There's a scope to it. There's a process to it. And we immerse ourselves in it. So then we feel Russia. So that is a very Odia concept. We don't know how it developed, when it developed, but the first documentation of it is in the 14th century in this book. First means there have been like sketches of that before, but the codification of it is not complete, but the psychophysics has not been studied. So Russia is large, so everything, it calls Soha in the Vedas. That is, everything has to fit right. Everything has to have aesthetic experience. Everything has to have immersiveness. So that to do, the clothes, the material, the ornaments, the setting, the nature, the food, the music, the drums, the DT, the decoration, the splendor, all that goes into making Russia. So the finiteness of it, the limit of it, how big the temple must be to have the Russia, we don't know. So that becomes like the appreciation, how big would be the eyes of an idol in order that it attracts you. That's psychophysics. Anyway, I get overwhelmed about when I think about Russia. So I then I come to the part when Odisha, this whole splendor got somehow weakened by the Majori, in this occupation. Islamic people first occupied about say 14th, 15th century they came, and then Manshing 1592. So Akbar, and then they tried to naturally to demolish in the sense not the free culture that Odisha had, but really occupational culture where you beg because the king gives, you don't produce, I take your land away. A massive number of Odia people, they become landless because they were taken away because they were skilled people. They're taken away to build palaces, Taj Mahal, and stuff like that. So which kind of depopulated the Odisha land. And then when these people returned back after completion, they were not accepted in the village back. And so the whole thing disintegrated. So landlessness started in Odisha, miserably. So then the British came, and British kind of tried to suck out the food for their own benefit, whatever remaining was there. So then they tried to bring the so-called landlords, jamindars, in order to really exploit. And so taxes increased. So people were displaced, and land was auctioned off without their knowledge. So this gentleman called Pikas, so they were maintained by the state. So this whole operation of Odisha as an independent state unit got tremendously in distress. So Odisha got into the British hands in 1803, but very quickly in 1817, what they call the revolted. Revolt happened first in the Kandha people, so then happened. So these are probably also Shavaras and kind of coming and settle in Odisha. So I give you some pictures of people who kind of fought, but they did not last. They didn't last because they were ready for the sword fight, but British had the guns, and they could also sell guns from the ocean. So those things become like the missiles. So it's not really, nothing is in front and so on. Village is destroyed. So that happened. And so basically this whole valor of the people did not last against the British guns. The guns had also occupied India before during the Babur time, but British guns were oceanic. So, and it is not clear, the gun technology did not come to Odisha. So they had kind of they developed, they understood guns, but to create guns in the ocean so that they can fire is a larger technique. So that did not happen. What happened? Why is not moving? Did anyone do something?
Click and
Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah. Oh, no, I was putting wrong button. So Mijuri. No, so that whole thing, the reduction of of the landlessness and this valor and then the imposition of new language. So all that. So basically, areas which are strong, independent, affluent, and so on, they couldn't understand. And gradually, as the British took away the food from Odisha, without their really knowledge, because Odisha was hospitable, they did not mind giving food, but they didn't know that they don't have food themselves. It's a peculiar story. It happened. So basically, Odisha itself, which was the breadbasket for the British, starved. And as I see the literature, 1/3 of the population perished. And so that whole thing, I give you some pictures here, and that has never happened anywhere in the world. I don't know how in a couple of years so much misery can come in, but Odisha changed. This time also, like Odisha was being occupied, not only by the British and so on, Odisha being auctioned off by the Bengal people. So all that together added to the misery. And I'm told that we have not recovered from that misery yet. So the massiveness of the misery and the kindness that Odisha may have, to cause itself the misery is a story which has to be. Then Odisha 1936. So what happened from the misery that was like 1866, and it tried to reconstitute itself. Not easy because it was fragmented. Odisha was not a state by itself. And it was British kind of they thought that these people are more strong people, they can fight. So they tried to curtail that. Look, we should not. So they did not really use any of the resources for the Odisha development. They closed the schools, they closed the institutions. They kept the temple simply because they didn't want people living in the temple. And they're also taking pilgrim tax from the temple. So this whole structure became very miserable. And some people, so this is the gentleman called Madhusudan Das, who kind of is given credit to first think that Odisha should have a state by itself. So he was a lawyer in Bengal and wealthy man, and somehow he came and he relinquished his profession, and then he tried to organize the language and literature and so on. And then people, so this was he's one of those Gajapatis, men who was very proud about the Odisha's wealth and language and this thing. So he joined him. So these two became the fathers of the original movement. Then this gentleman came, he was a teacher. So Gopabandhu, so somehow he could really feel the pain of people and try to put poetry onto it. Then this fellow, Kudabarisha, so he has a free mind. So he kind of wanted to see that the Oriya land, wherever there is, should come into the sun. So he worked on that. And then Nilakantha, he's the one who discovered or who tried to probe how fundamental the Oriya culture is. It's not a Vedic culture. Actually, Vedas people were rebuffed in Odisha because they said that the grace of God or sky is giving you material wealth and so on. Pray for it. So they said, we pray the ground. This gives us food. So from the Brahma, so it became the Arna Brahma. So anyway, so he kind of tried to examine those parts of it. Acharya Harihara was a teacher, and he joined them, and then he became like a freedom fighter with the independence struggle. Krupashindu Mishra, he comes from my village. So he's a historian, but very powerful man, and wrote, whatever I'm saying is because of his compilation, but it's not really fully documented, fully true, or fully authentic, but origin of it, that Odisha should know its own history, was due to this man. And then Sriram Chandra Bhanja, he was a king on the northern Odisha called Mayurbhanj. He also participated in building the new Odisha, which is to do with the education, health, facilities, and so on. He gave money to achieve it. And then we continue. I give you some of the poets. So these are the, I cite some of the poets, but there are many more. But he, see, the same time, as I said, that the Bengalis were occupying Indians, Odisha, and so on, he was one of those. But then he rebelled in his own family and said that no, he wants to really be wherever he is having his bread, he probably loyal to the that state. So then he became a poet and wrote in Odia. Also, he wrote in Bengali, but he grew up in a Bengali home. This gentleman, Fakir Mohan, was the authentic, the first Odia of his, after Sarala Das. He would be like the indigenous person, and he developed the language. He tried to restore the Odia, the way Odia is, the way Odia is spoken, the way Odia is used. Odia is a noun-based language. What is noun-based? Noun-based means each object has a name. There are 1,000 kinds of soil, there are 1,000 kinds of sand, there are 1,000 kinds of water, there are 1,000 kinds of trees, there are 1,000 kinds of leaves. Each has a name. It's not a variation of a leaf. It's not a green leaf or a white leaf or a yellow leaf or something. It has a name. So that is material, which you have to relate to your own mind, see what thoughts come. It is not he is a man, but man itself has a variation and each has a name. So that he examined, wrote. Gangadhar Meher is very powerful. So he comes from the Sambalpur area, but wrote like the lyricism. Then Madhusudan Rao, he was an educationist, and he wrote about the children's education. He was a patriot, and then Lakshmi Mahapatra, so he wrote our Bande Utkala Janani. So I just sample them, and then I have some few modern writers, Kalindi Panigrahi, who was kind of my idol when I was young. Mahadir Singh I never met, but his family, his son, eldest son is part of our OSA. Gopinath Mahanti is a novelist and wrote about the Kandhas. And his family, his daughter also lives in US. And Sachi Rautrai became a poet of eminence. Manoj Das, I grew up with. He lived in our house and so on. And then he is a very nice, wrote this philosophical essays and philosophical material. And Pratibha Ray is a woman novelist who is lately popular and got prizes. So, so present state of Odisha, utterly, I'm saying like a little commentary here, just for the sake of completion. So that is utterly weak and undeveloped state of affairs. Odisha state is slowly recovering. So I'm not very happy about the way things have progressed. The progress has been slow, and I can't really imagine whether the progress could have been faster or not. But definitely what I see is that the progress has not been, the planning has not been thoughtful. It doesn't reflect the massiveness of planning that Urias did, the festivals that we saw, the massive structures that we saw. So the thing is largeness, Russia in the sense of wholesome, everything has to move, everything has to be together. That's the ambience of it. That the food is of 56 kinds. So that largeness of it. All test birds have to be. So it's not like a here and there and so on, who supports me, who likes me, who this thing. And so I do not know whether the political or that is new mentality or that is the British. So federal government has created self-sufficiency food. We are not sufficient. Our food, our food is kind of coming from outside. So census statistics, Odisha has the highest high school dropout, which is bad. And we don't know what to do about it. So we are abroad. So I'm just setting it so that what responsibility we may have to see whether we can really help in some manner. Resource allocation of language culture is minimal. So this massiveness I told you about, the affluence, culture, and richness is not studied. People think it's the past. People don't even know that we existed. People somehow don't care. And that sucks me, bothers me. I did not care also. The more I have studied, I just think I love it. I want to hug it. And given a chance, I want to die in it. Or is there a passionate about ancestry, like I am saying, likely that we may succeed in I don't know what it is. Oh, then I put few extra slides too. I just put them last night. Now, what is the uniqueness of the culture? I may be running out of time or something, but let me just go through. I said the language is most important. Oldest, I think we don't know how the phonetic symbols developed. So the Sanskrit is kind of a text it and then creates grammar out of it. Oriya's grammar is phonetic. Oriya's grammar is in sound. It is not in the script. So the lyricism of it, the connection from one letter to the other is through the sound. So I express my vowel fully, completely, and then the next letter, then the next letter. I don't jump. So I have one particular motion through that letter, and then I move. So that thing is kind of a part of human biology, and the technique of it has to be fully explored, that how human beings are expressing whatever they are receiving from for example, you heard this lecture or this talk that I'm giving. Then let us say you want to express it somewhere. So how best you can do it? What is your impression? So that capacity that I can do it, I can express a mountain, I can express a tree, I can express a star, I can express a sea, and that's Odia. I have enough capacity in my voice, the range, tone, the syllable, the structure, the chanda, that I can do, so that the object comes out. Object comes out. So that technique of it. Now, I kind of say that this may be connected to the land. So this land, this here, northern Odisha, has been lately discovered as the oldest land, as I said before, and the minerals and so on has to be explored. Then Chilka is the largest brackish lake, and so that vegetation of it, biology of it, has to be understood and has not been done. So that makes them unique. So then the philosophy, people don't care much, but it is very unique philosophy, and that has to be championed. You all may have inside of you, but may not notice this. That is the uniqueness of man in the universe, the completeness of man in the universe. We call it Jagannatha. That is not different than us, part of us. He's a brother to us, he's a friend to us, he lives us. I'm speaking, he's here. So that whole association, universe is not separate from me, go with me, rather I go with it. So the then question is, how do I go? So that becomes the philosophy. So which becomes like the purity of body, mind, and thought. Hopefully, but that's the whole literature of it. That is, how do you really allow yourself to navigate in parallel together with this. Performing arts, so this whole thing together, as I said before, is massive. Performing arts gradually dying, and because unsupported, we support some of it, but not completely. And every piece of percussion instrument I showed you has its own group variation, and that has not been fully studied, that how percussion creates the universe. So that becomes a part of performing arts, and I will kind of request all of you, if you have time. I know it's hard. It's hard because our time is so short, and also the living conditions we have to kind of operate. And finally, I give you last slide here, the stone carving architecture. So here I have this Bikram Khol carving, which is 1500 BC, which I bumped into 2 or 3 years ago. So that has to be, so that's logic that probably the Indus Valley people, they migrated from there to Odisha in some form. So that's what the linguists are saying. But how they carried, what they carried, where the sculptors, where the etchers, we do not know. But this happens in the Western Odisha. So this will be the earliest inscription of any kind in India. And then Ashoka's inscription, of course, happened, Kharavala's has happened. And then architecture, I showed you, the massiveness of the temples and so on. So that has to be the whole process of it, the tools. The iron was not discovered, and so that has to be understood. So I'm kind of keeping it as a topic who want to go, might go, should go. And then color fixing. This is my favorite. Color fixing in the sense like the how colors go into the textile. So there are two different things here. One, the color has to be sharp. Color has to fix itself. Color has to not bleed. It's not one fiber bleeding the other fiber. And then you weave in such a pattern so that the nature comes out. Nature is discrete, so my color is also discrete. So that thing also shows up in this this whole process of this cloth painting, where the sharp colors are used to depict. So the sharpness of visual colors is what is that. So my intent, my view is sharp. I receive it exactly. There's no fudge to it. I see it. So hence my temple, my sculpture, my art, my music, my language is precise. I meant that. And that my body, my human being has been endowed with that power to be precise. And that's the Odia culture. Thank you for listening to me. So this is so thank you very much. Allowing people to speak into this audience.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any
Vaina.
questions may have, I don't know how much time we have, but I can take some questions.
Yeah, we can move forward to the questions if anybody has any question. So we have a couple of minutes we can discuss.
Okay.
More of the question is Vijay.
Go.
Vaina, apna slide stop sharing kar diyantu samaste.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Vijay,
wait. Stop sharing.
नमस्कार
Yeah.
दीटा क्वेश्चन आपन को
Go.
प्रथम क्वेश्चन है जो हमरो जो ओडिसा जो आपन जो चावल धान से कहते ये भी लिखा है आपन पौराणिक ये लिखा है जे महादेव आसी करथिले कलाहांडी के कोरापुट एरिया करथिले हला सो व्हाट इज सो कहते ओडिसा रो धानटा आरंभ होचे जो आपन को चावल धानटा आरंभ होचे ओडिसा रो दैट इज वन क्वेश्चन सेकंड क्वेश्चन है हमरो आपन जो टेंपल पे से देखिथिले सो गोटे ये होचे जो हमर जो ओडिसा रो दीटा जो तांत्रिक पीठ अछि गोटे होचे झरीवाला रानीपुर झरीवाल इन बलांगीर another as in Balyanta is called Chosat Jogani temple. से दुटा जो टेम्पल अपन देखंतु माने यू विल बी सरप्राइज दे सेठी तांकर जो मूर्ति अछि मूर्ति रचे दे हैव हाई हील्स एंड दे हैव स्लीवलेस ब्लाउज सो दे यू नो आमे जोटा मॉडर्न कहूचो द मॉडर्न वाज देयर 1000 years back 100,000 years मु जाने अपन अपन जानचंते टाइमलाइन सो
Right,
से
right.
विषय अपन टिके एलाबोरेट कले भलो हो
ठीक है चाउल कथाटा कहबी चाउल
Okay.
चाउल कोठु आसिला हमरे कहि पारु ना कारण जे जो माने सब आर्कियोलॉजी आविष्कार करछंती से माने कहउछंती चाउलटा चाइना रे प्रथमे तयारी हला बोली तार माने जोटा माने कर शेष हमर तटी आर्कियोलॉजी हेई नै आमे खोली किरी को अंचल रु पाइले जाई किरी तापर समय निर्धारण करिया
नै म अपन
I must-
पौराणिक कथा कहूछ महादेव जो चाष
right. And what
that was
we
in
know,
Kalanandi.
right, what we know is that the Odisha grows the largest variety of rice.
Yes.
And that variety in the sense that the different rice grains can happen and different rice grains have different properties, nutritious properties, the hygienic properties, and the hormonal properties. So that discovery of it, which comes in there is a book called Charaka Samhita, Ayurveda. So they talk about the nutrition. So those nutrition, the different levels that I said that we are kind of strong in levels. So all these different rice varieties have their own names. It's not rice per se. So maybe one of those varieties or many of those varieties really got hybridized in Odisha. If the grain itself, I mean, that's a different thing. The generic rice, and then there's a variety of the rice, long grain rice, short grain rice, gold rice. So this sort of that nature. So that's one, that's good. And then the yogini stuff. That's a tantra concept. I did not go details into it. And our 64 has to do with the 64 syllables we have. 64 syllables, how were discovered? We do not know. But that you have the 64 ways of expressing yourself naturally, physically, through your voice. So that becomes the original tantric principle. And then each of them is a matrika. Each of these phonetic symbols that you may create. Now the question is, the 64 is complete, we do not know. But that operation that the man can express, at the capacity to express, then you say the symbology of that particular expression. You say sleeveless or high heel or something like that. I do not know, that's technology and so on. But what I know philosophically is this whole mapping of human voice into the different structural tones and saying that I have different powers in me, which is Akshara, which is the Shakti. So that becomes I gave you the Achyuta. So go to Achyuta, that's a place, the literature of it, large literature. And I've not read fully, but study it, and you will kind of see how the yogini, it doesn't go to yogini, but you have to relate to again. Yogini Vidya is there, another kind of logic. Okay, so that's how I mean, I kind of, I'm scratching it.
Vijay bhai, टिके
Yeah.
अपन टिके कहबे about the yoginis and the Jagannath temple, the tantric and the Jagannath temple. टिके कौन दो 2 minutes.
Right, but I don't think we can really discuss that, because unless you really are a sadhaka, unless you have really done the tantra, I did not deliberately tried not to.
No, how
No,
it is
I
tied.
don't. No, I agree.
How it is tied.
Agree. It's not something to be discussed. It's something to be taught, something
Yes.
to be realized, right? So that is not really publicly.
ना अपन तो इतने जानते हैं तो इसलिए मैं अपनों पचल
No, that's good though. That's good though. But it's an individual The point is, whatever way you find it, the bottom line is following. The bottom line is universe outside of you or universe in you. So that is where man fails, because we kind of do not see the universe in us. So the beginning part of it, can I really see the universe in me? So that's the beginning of initiation, and how long it may take, 10 years, 15 years, and how do you do sadhana? Read Saradasha, and he will talk about it, how the yoga sadhana will do the creation of your body to become receptacle. And I gave you the bits. I told about bits. So bits, how do I hear the universal beat?
Okay.
So that bit I don't hear. We don't, what is it? So you have to become so still. That's the theory. That is, you can make the body as receptacle. So that you have a dialogue. So we go to Jagannath and so on. And Jagannath, so the question, does dialogue now? Does the vibration there, vibration in me? But then I feel that. It's not darshan. It's not visual. Reciprocation.
Yes.
So anyway, so that I might, at a later time and so on, we can make a tantra lecture and so on.
विजय भाई गोटे लास्ट क्वेश्चन होची हमर जो आपण जो देखैले प्रथम देखैतिले जो ओडिसा रो जियोग्राफी भी देखैतिले यू शोड द बे ऑफ बंगाल ताको देयर इज माने हिस्टोरिकल प्रूफ एंड आर्काइव्स माने ओडिसा आर्काइव्स जो आपण जानछथि अछि दैट वाज यूज्ड टू बी कॉल्ड कलिंग सागर.
Right.
So there is a movement in ये कौन social media.
No, it is. This is British. It is British. I think everything I said is kind of a none of except Upashana Mishra. So the Oriya historians, we have not examined it. The reason I kind of prepared the lecture is to see if our people, can we be empowered enough? Can we be affluent enough? Can we be resourceful enough to really engage people, think about it? So it's not a lost history, but the living history. We are living through it, and then we can explore it. We're right to explore it. So that if I can convey and if people are empowered with it, then yes, let us go find out how the Jagannath temple was built.
Okay.
How? Yes, then you can making this thing. But suppose at the present stage, oh, Jagannath, give me food and so on, and then that's not the way it is. No, I am Jagannath. I will build a house for you. So that kind of a logic, the affluence of it, the power of it, inspiration of it. Okay, anything else? Anybody else?
Vijay, namaskar. One of the best webinar I ever attended.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next question.
Go.
Uma
very good.
Uma Kochi.
Very good.
Vijayana, I think now I can see how much of meditation you did into this. It is a humongous topic.
Meditation.
And you did it in hour and 3/4. But there is so much information. I think not only there's a lot of things which most of people know, but the details are yet to be known. And there is a lot information in this presentation. That's one of the best about Odisha culture.
It's not the best or low or something. I mean, you see, when we were trying to do this Oriya school many years ago, 83, so that time when we're telling children, and we're not saying who we are. Again, I must say, in a larger sense, definition that we are brave, adventurous, empowered, empathetic, creative, artistic. So if those are our characters, do they present themselves in our operation? So how miserly you become, how quickly you become mortal. You don't really say, okay, somebody notices me. So somebody who built the Konark temple, he did not build that whether I will be known. So that logic that I'm living for my work, I'm not a chief. So that thing was developed in Odisha. Karma. So karma genera. Karma. So that thing, if we really, but then question is, once you're oppressed, once your independence gone, once you starve, so you beg. So whether we can really escape that thing and then become self-sufficient, then you probe. But whether by that time, the time is up, things have changed.
Actually, I have one concern.
Yeah.
Not because of Odia culture. I see, and I have been asked many times, we have now 34 Jagannath temples in this country or around us, out of which the Jagannath has been evicted from New York, from LA, from Chicago, and I'm listening, maybe it might happen in Atlanta, Huntsville. So the question is, are we moving too fast without having a better function with a poor structure for
Right,
which
but
it is
that's a
not
different topic.
sustainable?
Now, that's a
Yes,
whole
कर्मे
different
जिए
topic.
नरो हमें कर्म सकाश किंतु
That's a
सेटा
whole
काहे कि
different
long
topic.
lasting होनी.
I agree. That's the kind of developmental technique and so on that we must discuss in a different forum. That's because the point is the Orishas have been displaced from the Odisha itself, not Jagannath or New York temple. The question is, if the way it goes now, in another 50 years, you'd be minority. Oriya would not be spoken. It's not used. So culture, they're relics. So we have seen the Mayan civilization.
Yes.
Relics are there. Pyramids are there. So this becomes, Konark also became like that. It can easily become like that. I went to Thailand to check the Kalinga architecture. They have become forests. The question is a function of time. Function of whether the future generation, as we are. Now, we are operating in a foreign land here, again being ejected out. Some people have come probably for some survival, but people like me, we were kind of, we could not support ourselves. I got ejected. As a matter of fact, this whole lecture I'm dedicating to my father, whose biography I just finished. So the question is ejection, too independent throughout. You're a good piker, get killed. We'll take out your land. So that thing has happened. So the retention of it. Now the Jagannath temple, they're kind of trying to do some kind of a urinals around it for an entertainment center, not as a spiritual center, not an education center, not coming to learn Tantra. People are coming to, okay. So that whole process has to be somehow understood. And we are parts of it. What kind of sometimes I feel aggrieved that the misery, the penury has become so large that we have not really been able to look at ourselves. I mean, what you can. We're starving. What you can look. Be thankful that you survive. So my point is that is not what Odisha is. I'm not thankful. I am. So to create that spirit, I can create. I create a theatra. You know what I mean? Some people say, look, okay, can you do a mini scale? You know what I mean? Like that thing, take it around. No. I build the Kudarak. So that thing we have to explore, that the genetic qualities of those, they do not die, probably are not dead. Can we really bring it back? And can we really, or, you know, we may not exist. Well, okay. You know, extinction is a part of nature, evolution. The stronger forces occupy, they occupied. That's okay. We become fossil, relics. I don't know. So it's okay. Anybody else?
Oh, yeah,
Thank you.
Uma bhai na.
Uh,
Uma bhai na କହୁଛି I think the Jagannath culture is thriving in USA. ହେଲା ଆପଣ କହୁଛନ୍ତି କୋଉଠି ବନ୍ଦ ହେଲା ତାଙ୍କର politics internal politics
No,
ଲାଗି ବନ୍ଦ
I think
ହଉଛି
that's
no, that's
Okay.
a separate
That's-
topic for
that's-
Okay,
discussion.
separate
I'll tell you.
ଆପଣ ଯାହା କହିଲେ I'm just answering you. Tampere 14 ତାରିଖରେ May 14 ରେ ହଉଛି they are opening also Jagannath temple in Tampa ହେଲା
Right.
so ଆପଣ ଯଦି ଚାହୁଁଛନ୍ତି ମାନେ I will send you all the invitation and everything.
No, I have all the information.
Yes,
I also-
Jagannath
Correct. Chalo,
Yeah.
chalo. How do you cultural history karo? Mane kar
I beg to differ, Uma bhai. The Jagannath culture is thriving in USA.
chalo.
Next question के
Chalo.
ମୋର ଗୋଟେ क्वेश्चन ଥିଲା ଭାଇନା ମାନେ ବହୁତ ବଢିଆ ପ୍ରେଜେଣ୍ଟେସନ ଲଟ୍ସ ଅଫ ଇନଫର୍ମେସନ ଆପଣ ଟିକେ ସେ ସ୍ଲାଇଡ ଟା ସେୟାର କରନ୍ତୁ ଆଉ ତାପରେ
ସ୍ଲାଇଡ ତାକୁ ଦେବି ତ ବିଶ୍ୱକୁ ଦେଇଦେବି ସେମାନେ ତାକୁ କଣ ଜ୍ଞାନ କହିଛି ପୋଷ୍ଟ କରିବେ ବୋଲି ତାର
Recording.
ହଁ ସ୍ଲାଇଡ ଟା ଦରକାର ହବ ଟିକେ ତାପରେ ଆଉ
କଥା ହଉଛି କଣ ଯେ ତମେ ଯୋଉ ଅନୁଶୀଳନ କରିବ and every person who wants to get into it, no readability. I try to give some text, but you have to kind of dive into this, what exactly it means. And so that depth, if you develop and communicate to the children, see what has happened is we have changed ourselves from a creative, independent, prosperous nation to a begging nation, surviving nation. So it is not that we demand a space on the table. We're glad that somebody is there on the table. So that's not what ODI is. I am Jagannath. Jagannath is different than everything else. Everything else. Now the question is, when we first tried to establish Jagannath temple in Nashville, so the then question came, they said that how do you worship this? Right? So they tried to make it as Vishnu. So whether this whole operation of who Jagannatha is, the equality is not there in the religion of India now. So that you don't have to be special, except you have to be tantric. Except you think this is my Jagannath. So that purity. But anyway, yeah, what's the question?
ମାନେ ହଁ ମୋ क्वेश्चन ଥିଲା ଯେ ଆମର ଅଶୋକଙ୍କ ସମୟରେ ଯୋଉଟା ଥିଲା ଆମର ଯାହା ବି କିଛି ଆକ୍ଟିଭିଟିଜ ଥିଲା ତାର ଡକୁମେଣ୍ଟେସନ ଲିଟରେଚର ସେମିତି କିଛି ନାହିଁ ଆମର ଦେଖନ୍ତୁ ଶିଶୁପାଳ ଗଡ଼ ଯୋଉଟା ଅଛି ଆମର ଭୁବନେଶ୍ୱରରେ ଆମେ ଚାହିଁଲେ ବି ସେଭଳିଆ କିଛି ଲିଟରେଚର ତା ପାଖରେ ନାହିଁ ତୁ ଜାଣିବା ପାଇଁ ଅଧିକା କଣ ଅଛି ମାନେ ତାର ଫ୍ୟାକ୍ଟ ବେସ୍ଡ ଡେଟା କିଛି ନାହିଁ କି ଆମକୁ ଯୋଉ वी हैड ए रिच मैरीटाइम हिस्ट्री तार भी किसी गोटे लिटरेचर गोटे किसी नहीं
No, that you create though. No, that's not an excuse. So more बापर ठिकना जड़ा नहीं बोली हॉस्पिटल आइला मु जाननी बोली मु ता पुओ न बोली केन कहि
नहीं किनो कथा हला हमर जो
but you have to kind of if it's not there, go and explore it, try to find out, try to reconstruct, try to see, I mean, I think take a navigation route, see how many people might have done real time experiment.
No, mane katha hala we are novice, we have no idea about this one. Those
okay.
who claim that these are the things they promote and they speak about, they should think about how to publicize this information with facts, data, or update the Wikipedia, because not everybody, like I am a novice, I cannot go and explore all these things.
That's okay. That is up to you.
No, what I mean
is up to you.
Who claim
who are the new sons of the soil, who can really maintain Odisha. I do not know. When I'm trying to do this, when I last year on I did the MIT, see the questions, I don't know who the inheritors are, who the inheritors of the Konark temple architecture are. I don't know. Certainly, I'm not prepared in that. The massiveness of thinking doesn't come to me. So how do I inject to my children, possibly to their children, that look, universe is large, and you are part of the universe. Think in those terms.
ताको प्रश्न पचारले से तो कहि चलेबे तंका 2 घंटा हे गलानी
नहीं
नै म त
वर्तमान
कहिली तंकु जगन्नाथ कल्चर विषय रे काहे कि
नहीं
सब होउचे
नहीं,
major areas the older generation they are all going away so is it a structure function whatever अच्छा अक्षय मान तार चलिछि तार
ठीक है तुम्हारा म्यूट
मैंने
करो आउ
मोर
कोन
कहला
क्वेश्चन अछि ना
ଆଉ କାହାର question ଅଛି
नहीं
no,
मोर
don't
कहला कोन कि
don't
आमे
disintegrate the source
नहीं
don't
मोर
disintegrate don't disintegrate the social discussion we can
नहीं नहीं
terminate the
एटा
recording maybe my
मोर
goal is
कहला
not to really
Hmm.
not to blame anyone not to say that
नहीं
this is
आमे
wrong
जोड़ा चाहूं से जे हमरो सेकंड जनरेशन ओडिया मन को ई कल्चर टा हमरो रिच कल्चर से जणाया पई they need the right platform to know and understand better about the Odia culture.
empower yourself I have to stop there empower yourself don't say
Yeah.
that what I do not have hence I can't communicate and it is the handicap of people who did not create go and explore if you can if you can't just okay leave it alone my point don't blame anyone I think people who did
No, it's not blaming. What I mean to say that we need that kind of literature or platform.
that's okay that's a no need and so on means you could always comment that I could have done more work on this so be grateful in Odisha in the sense I am grateful what I have
Okay.
I spoke this is what the best I could do
Okay.
I could do much better
No, this is a
more.
lot
No,
of
wait.
information.
Understand the psychology. The finding fault in non-Oriya psychology. Oriya psychology, I do. So this is the cooperative psychology that I have been trying to understand how to develop. We have individual pieces of work. I do. It's a cooperative work. So now some script people could fail in there or they kept in such a way, did not put the technology so that it can be preserved. So that's kind of a yeah, probably. Or my question is to me, is have I dug enough? And I am kind of not blessed to be with them. So I'm trying to scratch in my late age about what could be. So that's the pure scratch. So my point is what I'm kind of trying to do is that all of you in your own manner, whatever your skills are, biology, geology, archaeology, sociology, philosophy, civil engineering, architecture, so go and probe and try to determine what could be happening. It's not that somebody says, I took so many quintals of gravel and dumped there. So that could be there, but we may not know those measures. For example, in Valmiki Ramayana, he says the Mahendragiri is there in Odisha. So goes 800 miles. And that is what I saw, the coastal sub-self, the shallow. And what Valmiki says, Hanuman is jumping around. He's not flying. So that jumping is possible with shallow water. So this is where the imagination goes into literature to see whether I can reconstruct. So then the question is that when does it really cross to Lanka and so on? So then you can see in the Rameshwaram and so on, the ocean becomes deep, the continental shelf dies, so he has no choice, he can't go in further. He has to make a big jump. Big jump. Jump is, it's not, it's all water and the aquatic animals. The coastal is not there. So that's what you have to see from the geography of it. And he finds a little mountain on this thing, and because he can't jump the whole thing, things like that. So my point, all these little things in literature, like Achyuta said, so read it and try to reconstruct. So that is the next job. And I'm not sure whether we are strong enough, have enough time to really do those. But my thinking is that individual with your particular interest, particular skills, if you go into some areas, then you might probe and you might try to see more. For example,
one last question. Karachi.
Karachi. Sigopalavu got a Sigopalavu, or is he? He's not there. I'm speaking too much. Losing. Okay, all right.
Upon mute rachandi.
Dr. Paul achandi.
Mute rachandi.
Dr. Paul, Bikram Babu, apna on mute karantu.
आज्ञा कर ली
अच्छा विक्रम बाबू मुक्केन जाने कौन तू
आज्ञा नमस्कार विजय बाबू
नमस्कार ओके
नमस्कार
कोट वाली मुझे भेटी नहीं हाँ
नहीं
हाँ.
I was in MIT in 74 75 when I was in Harvard University and
अच्छा
I was doing some research with some of the physicists.
वो 74 पहुंच ली कौन तू
अच्छा so I enjoyed your
Thank you.
this whole history, the entire culture and everything. You know, my only concern is that our generation, we are very much keen and interested about this. How do we inculcate this and transfer these ideas that Odisha is great, culture was great, is great.
It's not great. I think my point is we have to kind of understand who we are. How much curiosity, you see, the question is curiosity is a function of your own security. You are curious. For example, now we are 18 people here. That doesn't mean the rest people in the country who are of origin or this thing, they're not interested. But to find time to really delve into it. And then the question comes, if I can't delve into it, what's the point? So that could be the so-called, that's the present situation back in state. That suppose we revive the Oriya literature, so what? Where people will find jobs, who will feed them? What's the point? So the point is the culture for the culture's sake, identity's sake, that I want to know myself. So that question is not a question in the Odisha state now. That's because it was exploited and that exploitation continues. What
Yes.
we are doing now, we are kind of selling our minerals. We are not creating objects of the minerals. We are selling them to get money.
Right.
And then buy food with that money. We're not producing food. So the whole economy, a productive economy, so that we can create, and then there's a splendor in the creation. I engage the human resources, my human skills, and then I market them. There's a large trade, the world is receptive, and I will create market. Instead of that, let me throw away whatever I got, right? And then feed some people and let them, and sometimes now I understand the food is given free and so on. So all that process is a killing process. So the question is, can we stem it? How it has happened, who caused it is a different question. But we abroad, who we are, so if we can say a question to us that is our identity is important to us. So they say that the American slaves, right? And slave says, what is my identity? I'm an African identity. So the slave owner says, what identity talking about? You are my slave. That's your identity. Your name is Tom. Call yourself Tom. So that whole thing, that I'm in chains. So whether we can release ourselves, so now the slavery really people, one person at least there, right? He said, that
Yeah, I
my
think
name
still we have that mentality of dependency.
my name is not Tom.
Yes.
My name is Tom. So he kind of said his name is Reda. Wow, what are you talking about? Okay, come on, beat him up. So he said, well, so like that. So that rebelliousness, exploration of identity, that is our strong rooting to the soil. So that whether it will happen, will not happen, how it will happen is up to the function of history. All I'm trying to do when I found that so much ignorance is there in me, a lot of hand waving. So can we really escape it in some form? So what you heard from me is a very superficial scratch of this large entity that you call Odia, which live by itself. And so my point is, if each of you who's ever remaining, if you really probe into it, that is that me? Is that Odisha dancer in me? Is that drummer in me? Do I hear the universe beat? Do Jagannatha do talk to me? Am I a beggar? So all those thoughts, if they come to you, that Jagannatha created me or I create Jagannatha? Who is he? So that thought will come in, human empowerment.
Right.
So that thing, so the question is, can we reach? My thinking is, someday somebody will see it. Because such a lavish culture can't die. That's my gut feeling. But then you kind of say, I have not been to the OSNE function for 20 years or more, simply because survival, not a celebration of empowerment. And that I noticed that my father passed away. And not that I could know, but then I explored more and so on. What I'm saying is my 20 years of my own thought process. So that doesn't mean I can only beg, you know, man. But then people, whosoever listens, Vishwa was kind to really host it, right? And so I got hosted after a year. Anyway, so now we are here together, at least in some form.
Yes.
Did not die. He did not die. Right?
No, that's good. Thank you. Thank you, Vaina. So we'll conclude here. It's
Okay,
a nice,
very good.
nice presentation. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for the
Thank you.
OSNE
Thank you.
Thank
to
you.
sell this
Namaskar
one,
to all of
but to
you.
make it